and today I'm going to tell you how to read Shakespeare. I started off reading Shakespeare when I think I was about 14, and I read Romeo and Juliet. I loved it. I fell in love with it. I read it over and over and over again until I pretty much had the play memorized. And then I finally moved on to some other Shakespeare. But for the last few years, I've been working on a project to read all of Shakespeare's plays and sonnets, and I only have 11 plays left. Or no, I have 10 plays left. I really enjoy reading Shakespeare's plays and seeing them performed. However, I am by no means an expert on Shakespeare. I have never taken a Shakespeare class. I have never performed in a Shakespeare play. I mean, I've read the plays, but I haven't, made an in-depth study of them. I'm definitely not an expert. I wouldn't really even say that I'm a Shakespeare enthusiast. I just like reading old-timey stuff. So I've had people asking me lately, how did you read so much Shakespeare? How are you still reading all of these plays? There's 38 plays. So I'm going to tell you how I do it. So first of all, I want to differentiate between 3 different ways of reading Shakespeare. Whether you're reading just to kind of get the basic gist of the story, whether you're reading for deeper themes and meaning behind the story, or whether you're reading just to enjoy the words, to enjoy the poetry and the language of the play. So the easiest one of these and the quickest is simply to read for the story. You're just trying to get the basic gist of what's going on with the characters and the plot. You're not really worried about the deeper meanings behind stuff. If you come across a phrase and you just have no clue what that meant, oh well, just gloss over it, just keep reading. You want to just kind of let the words flow over you, and you're not stopping to identify what things mean, and you're not running to a dictionary to, make sense of every little word. So as an example for this, I have my very favorite of Shakespeare's plays, Much Ado About Nothing, and I'm going to read a little bit to you and show you how you can just kind of figure out the story, even if you don't really understand all the words. This is from Act 1, Scene 1, when Benedick and Beatrice meet for the first time. I wonder that you will still be talking, Signor Benedick. Nobody marks you. And Benedick says, What, my dear Lady Disdain, are you yet living? Beatrice says, Is it possible Disdain should die while she hath such meat food to feed it as Signor Benedick? Courtesy itself must convert to disdain if you come in her presence. Benedick says, Then is courtesy a turncoat, but it is certain I am loved of all ladies, only you excepted. So they're saying a lot of stuff about disdain and courtesy, and I didn't quite catch maybe what that was. I mean, I'm not really sure what exactly they're saying here, but it's very evident to me that they're teasing each other. He calls her Lady Disdain, and she says, oh, I could be starving, or something like that. I'm sure it's very witty. Maybe I don't quite understand what it means, but it's evident that these two characters have a history, and they're just have this witty repartee going back and forth between them. So that's how you read for the story. I'm not going to go all delving deep into what exactly their witty little comments meant. I'm just going to say, these two characters have a history and they are teasing each other and they're getting into an argument. And that's really the basic gist of all that I need to know from pretty much most of Scene 1. So even if you can't figure out every little detail of what they're talking about, the basic idea of what is happening is still pretty evident. The second way of reading Shakespeare is to read it for the deeper meanings, the deeper themes in the play. With this, you really want to analyze the characters, their dialogue, their actions, and figure out the relationships of characters one with another. You want to look for the big picture. What is the big lesson, the big moral, the overarching theme of the entire play? And that is played out in the characters and their relationships with one another and their interactions and dialogue. So if I read the exact same passage again, this time looking for deeper meanings and looking for a deeper relationship between what is going on with Beatrice and Benedick, then I really need to delve into the meanings of the phrases and the words. So Benedick calls her his dear Lady Disdain. And the word disdain is capitalized, which means that it's being personified. This disdain is being personified as if it were a person. And Beatrice replies as if disdain were a person, saying that it's impossible for disdain to starve because she has plenty of food with Signor Benedict around. And so then she says courtesy itself must convert to disdain when it's around Sir Benedict. So again, courtesy has been personified. So courtesy would change to disdain if it were around Sir Benedict, because Beatrice has such a strong disdain for Sir Benedict. Not only does this show what a witty and quick-thinking character Beatrice is, and Benedict is as well. She always has that quick answer to give to him. But it also shows how well-matched these two characters are. They can both always think of that perfect comeback. However, at this point, Benedict comes back with a rather feeble, then courtesy is a turncoat. A turncoat means a traitor. So he's saying if courtesy were to change to disdain, like you're saying, Beatrice, then courtesy is a traitor. And then he says, but that's not true because I am loved of all ladies. So he's trying to prove to her that, you know, she's the only one that is disdainful towards him, that actually most people are courteous towards him and enjoy his company. And this is definitely a theme of the entire play. It's basically the whole play is Beatrice and Benedict getting into fights and arguments and swapping witty comebacks back and forth until finally they realize how well matched they truly are. So from the same passage, you can either read it just for the story and just kind of understanding the basics, or you can delve a little deeper into the meanings and understand exactly what they're saying and look up those hard words, and you can understand a little broader picture of what, you know, Shakespeare is trying to paint this story for us. The next example I have for you is from, of course, the famous Romeo and Juliet that everyone has read. And I'm even going to take a passage from the famous balcony scene, so nothing new there. So everybody knows that first line, but soft what light through yonder window breaks, it is the east and Juliet is the sun. I don't know why, but most people stop there. Let's keep going. Arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon, who is already sick and pale with grief, that thou, her maid, art more fair than she. Be not her maid, since she is envious. Her vestal livery is but sick and green, and none but fools do wear it. Cast it off. It is my lady, oh, it is my love, oh, that she knew she were. She speaks, yet she says nothing. What of that? And of course, Romeo goes on and on and on. So if we're reading it the first way, we're just trying to get the general gist of the story. We say, ooh, he's saying lots of flowery romantic stuff. Okay. And we just keep going. If we're reading it the second way for deeper meaning and themes, then we want to stop and figure out kind of what is he saying exactly. So first of all, he starts talking about the moon. And then he says that Juliet is the maid of the moon. Thou, her maid, art more fair than she. So the moon here is thought of as Diana, the goddess of the moon, who was also the patron goddess or whatever of virgins. So there's a deeper theme in here that he's basically a peeping Tom at the window of this virginal maid. He goes on to say, be not her maid, since she is envious. Her vestal livery is sick and green, and none but fools do wear it. Cast it off. So vestal livery, the livery is like the uniform, you know. So he's talking about, you know, don't keep on the uniform of virginity. Cast it off. Yeah, Romeo was just not really a good guy. I'm sorry, y'all. He's not just saying a bunch of romantic stuff about the moon, y'all. He's pretty much lusting after her. Oh yeah. I've always thought that Shakespeare is kind of poking fun at Romeo and Juliet, and I think the balcony scene is the biggest evidence of that. I mean, Romeo, dude, you got problems. And maybe you dress it all up in this flowery language about the moon, but he's basically just, he's a young man. Whatever. So there's your deeper themes for Romeo and Juliet. Two young people, maybe they're in love, maybe they're just kind of in lust, but there they are. So a deeper theme for Romeo and Juliet, what does it mean to be in love? What does it mean to just lust after someone? You know, Romeo thought he was in love with Rosalind or Rosalind or whatever her name was, but maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was really in love with Juliet. This play definitely raises questions about the meaning of love. So there's your deeper theme. And understanding the background behind these few little lines in the balcony scene really gives us a deeper insight into Romeo's character. So now let's get into the third way to read, which is to read for the words, for the poetry. I mean, I'm just a wordaholic. Sometimes I just latch onto a word and I'm like, ooh, that's a good word. That's a good one. So if you're reading it for poetry, you want to read pretty slowly in small little sections and stop and look up words in the dictionary and look up those archaic phrases to find out what they really mean. And you especially want to appreciate kind of the rhythm of the play, the rhythm of the poetry. So now let's read this one again, reading it for the poetic nature that it has. So first of all, Romeo sees a light that goes on in a window, and he sees Juliet at that window, and he compares her to the sun. Then he starts comparing that sun to the moon. So he's already saying that Juliet is this brightness in his life, brighter even than the moon. So much so that the moon is envious of the brightness that Juliet has. And of course, if I'm reading it for poetry, I just appreciate the language. There's just some really beautiful wording in there, and the way that the words are kind of crafted together just gives you just this really enchanting scene. All right, I have one more example to show you from A Midsummer Night's Dream, which is my second favorite after Much Ado About Nothing. In this passage, Oberon is talking to Robin Goodfellow, and he's telling him to make some mischief. Oberon says, "At that very time I saw, but thou couldst not, flying between the cold moon and the earth, Cupid, all armed. A certain aim he took at a fair vestal throned by the west, and loosed his love shaft smartly from his bow, as if it should pierce 100,000 hearts. Yet marked I where the bolt of Cupid fell. It fell upon a little western flower. Fetch me that flower, the herb I showed thee once. The juice of it on sleeping eyelids laid will make or man or woman madly dote upon the next live creature that it sees." So if I'm just reading for the story, I can see that Oberon knows about this herb which will make people fall in love. It's basically like a love potion. And he tells Robin Goodfellow to go and get it. So basic plot stuff going on. However, if I look at it a little closer and I look at some of the words, the first word that really doesn't make any sense is that he took certain aim. So certain, that means he perfectly aimed it. And he took aim at a fair vestal, which is another word for virgin again. Shakespeare had a dirty mind, y'all. And it says it loosed his love shaft smartly from his bow, as it should pierce 100,000 hearts. So Cupid is the one who's in charge of making people fall in love. And this book is all about people mistakenly falling in love with other people that they didn't realize, and all kinds of ridiculousness going on with basically that you are not in charge of who you are in love with. Somebody else can magically or whatever make you fall in love with other things. So here's a very deep theme. You are not in charge of who you love. Cupid or magic or Oberon or something else is in charge of who you love. And then of course if we read it the third way, just reading for poetry, I mean there are some beautiful, beautiful words in here talking about the love shaft that would pierce 100,000 hearts. It gives you this big kind of emotional, passionate idea, you know, like hundreds of thousands of hearts beating like crazy and falling in love. But then who is making them fall in love? Cupid. And where is he? Flying between the cold moon and the earth. So Cupid is just high above it all, and he's cold-hearted, and he doesn't care who you fall in love with. The last tip that I have for you guys is just to keep reading Shakespeare or anyone from his time period. The more you read that type of language, the easier it becomes. And the more you kind of read those phrases and those archaic words, then you start to remember them, and the next time you see them, you'll be like, oh yeah, I know that one. After a while, you start to feel pretty smart. And another tip that I have is, if you can, get your hands on the new Folger Library of Shakespeare, because these editions are fantastic. I really love these editions because they have the regular, words of the play on one side, and on the other side, they have definitions and explanations of phrases and explanations of, archaic things that we wouldn't know about today. So this makes it very easy to read through, because immediately next to the text is an explanation or even a picture, and it just makes it so easy to refer back and forth and understand everything that's being said. Please leave a comment and let me know what is your favorite Shakespearean play. Please subscribe. You can donate to the Missionary Kids at GoFundMe.com. Thanks for watching, and remember, the right book in the right hands at the right time can change the world.